Hello and welcome to Cracking the Cryptic. Today I'm going to have a look at today's Times Quick Cryptic and just give you a give you a start on how some of the clues work, because that's really the measure of how to get going in cryptic crosswords. And often people wonder, what are you looking at to find the answers so quickly? But what are you looking at all? So here I'm going to start looking at 2 down. This clue to a phrase that is 4-8 long says, "Equerry's girl, awfully wild creature." And there, remember that one part of the clue has to be a definition. So surely that can't be Equerry's girl. That seems a very odd, unless there was some ancient term for, like, lady-in-waiting, for an equerry's girlfriend. But even then you wouldn't call it a girl, probably, in a clue. That seems very unlikely. So we look at the other end of the clue and we see creature or wild creature, and that looks a lot more likely. And in that case, equerry's girl, awfully, and possibly wild, would have to be the word play. And there's not a lot going on there, but you have got this very strange phrase, equerry's girl. And if you were to add up the number of letters in that, you'd find it was 12, the same length as the answer. And awfully and wild can both be anagram indicators. So you really are looking for 12 letters to anagram into this answer. And it's quite possible, therefore, to find an anagram from equerry's girl, i.e. you've treated those words or those letters awfully, and that'll give you a wild creature. Now, the Q is obviously one of the more suggestive letters there. I don't think it's an easy anagram still, but nonetheless, it is possible. And we'll come back to that maybe when we've got a few letters in the grid, and try and fill it in then. Let's have a look for now at 8 across, and that might give us one of the letters. Prague hostelry, we're told, will offer desk to register. And it's another phrase, 5-2. Now, Prague hostelry, again, just doesn't look like a definition. And we're told, this is one of the kind of top crosswordese things, and you might even be able to guess that even if you hadn't seen crosswords before. But if you knew that they could involve sound-alikes, homophones, then you might notice that you might suspect that we're told is hinting at a homophone. So if the definition is coming at the end, so it could be to register or desk to register, then the word plays at the beginning. So we probably need something that sounds like a Prague hostelry. Well, we're not going to know any specific pubs in Prague. So what we have to think about is what is Prague telling us? Well, Prague is very obviously a capital. It's the capital of the Czech Republic. And Czech is already perhaps suggesting something regarding desk to register. So if we were to put the word Czech, which sounds C-H-E-C-K, obviously sounds like C-Z-E-C-H, Czech, then that should suggest us the phrase check-in, which is what we often call the desk to register at a hotel or an airport. And in can be a hostelry. Obviously we're looking at a homophone again, because I-double-N is going to have to become I-N. But that gives us this very neat check-in. And it's a very nice idea that you might find a check-in, as in an inn in the Czech Republic. And that describing that as a check-in sounds like check-in, the desk where you would register. So that's quite neat. Now, you will always find a definition at one end. You may sometimes find a definition at the other end. So 3 down, inclined to be a playboy, ? So we need something that either means incline or a playboy, or maybe to be a playboy. And with the K in place, either of those definitions might make us think of rake. And then if we're trying to prove that, we're going to have a little general knowledge, probably on both ends actually, to know that if you have your hat at a rakish angle, you have raked it, and rake can therefore mean to tip or to incline, and a playboy can be called a rake as well. So rake is the answer there. And then 4 down, this is an example of some very basic wordplay. Songbird left in trap. Well, there it's not immediately clear which end is the definition. It could be songbird or it could be trap. Left in, however, is some wordplay. Clearly that's got something going on. Left can so often be the letter L, that if we imagine this might be a songbird beginning with L, is that going to work? Well, an L first letter and an N third letter, hopefully that might suggest a songbird if you know this one, which is a linnet, and that clearly works very neatly as L in net, which is the crossword translation of left in trap. And again, you do need a tiny bit of general knowledge there, but if you have that, it's not that impossible to get. I'm going to have a quick look at 10 across. I don't actually think this is all that easy, but on the other hand, it's just a 4-letter answer, and there's not that much that can be done with the clue. Pet turning up near ship. Well, which end is the definition? It could be pet or it could be ship. Those are the likely ones. Turning up looks like wordplay. And turning up can mean arriving, but it could also mean that you have to turn the letters of up, and that would give you PU. And once you've done a few crosswords, or even if you've just kind of moved in the world, you may know that a ship is often called the SS, like the SS Great Britain. I think it originally stood for steamship, but it just now is a designator for a ship. And if you put SS near or after that turned up PU, you get puss, and obviously that can be a pet. Now I think we can go back to 2 down, this anagram, as we're fairly confident of equerry's girl. And it's fairly clear that Q can't actually begin either word. Because if it was beginning the 4-letter word, that would be QUE something, and I don't know any words that fit that. And it can't begin the second word, which clearly begins with an S. So we're going to have to find a space for a Q. It can never go very late in a word, and we're looking for a wild creature here. So once we think of the idea of putting a Q straight after the S, then I think we can maybe get on the track of a somewhat elusive grey squirrel. Not as elusive as the red, I suppose, but nonetheless. That makes a very neat anagram of equerry's girl. So that's quite a clever find by the compiler, but because of the nature of those words, they're not very easy to disguise as a definition, and they're not. Quick look at 1 down. In summary, picked up speed after start of race. Well, start of race, obviously that's when the gun goes off in a race, but in crossword terms, the start of something is often its first letter. So the start of race could be an R, and when you look at the letters we've got in the grid, and I really can't stress enough how much it helps to have letters already placed. You need to look at them if you're solving clues a lot. Then we could put an R somewhere in 1 down, and the only way I think to get a word with an R in that combination is recap. Now how would that work? In summary, in forming the word for summary, the definition is summary, and the answer could be recap. That works. We need to pick up speed, that's pace, so it's picked up, meaning written upwards, and that's written after the start of R. So we get recap, which is a summary. And now we've got so many letters in 1 across that we might be able to identify quite quickly. In fact, you could probably work out I suspect there's only 1 word that fits at all. Showing no respect in spite of everything. Well, in fact, that's actually a double definition as well. And showing no respect is having no regard for something. And in spite of everything, meaning whatever happens, regardless, or as TV commentators now seem to say a lot, irregardless, but that's clearly an error. And that's another fairly straight double definition. So it's going very neatly. Now, there are some nice little clues here as well that are worth drawing your attention to. I'm not going to go through the whole puzzle. We'll keep it fairly brief. 11 across. Robbery involves mafia leader who seeks pleasure. Now, that's very hard from just the E, and again, you need a little bit of knowledge. Now, a mafia leader in a crossword, he's appearing in the middle of the clue, so it's almost certain to be wordplay. With some, could be the letter M. I don't think the Times normally works like that, though. And there are a couple of short words for mafia leaders who are worth knowing. One is capo, which is from the Italian, and one is Don, as in the Godfather films and so on. And it's Don we need here. And if you put Don in the middle of a certain word for robbery, which I think is an American word, I'm not sure, you focus on the answer, on the definition perhaps. Who seeks pleasure? Well, a pleasure seeker. Is there an 8-letter word for a pleasure seeker? Somebody who believes that seeking pleasure is actually the right way to live one's life. We call them either Epicureans, I think, maybe that's food connected, or hedonists. And a hedonist does have a Don in, and he's in the middle of a heist, very appropriately. So it's a beautiful clue in a way that a robbery, the heist, has involved, brought in the mafia leader, the Don. And then the definition is who seeks pleasure, and the answer is hedonist. So that's a very nice little clue there. It's worked, I think, very, very neatly. And we'll just have one look at the other long one, 6 down, 12 letters, a 12-letter word. That can be quite scary. But this says nothing but repetition, rather regular repetition perhaps. And so repetition is clearly a focus of the clue. And you might know a long word for a repetition of a form, and it's one that you might not realize that you know. But if I was to ask you, in fact, look at that clue, rather regular repetition perhaps. All those words begin with R. And if all the words in a phrase begin with the same consonant especially, that's a literary device that you do know the name of. It's called alliteration. Now, how could that be? Why is there wordplay or another definition in nothing but repetition? Well, that's because that phrase breaks down very beautifully into all iteration, meaning everything is repeated, nothing but repetition. And that's a lovely way of phrasing this clue. And rather regular repetition, perhaps, is a beautiful definition, because not only does it actually define the answer, it also exemplifies it. So a really lovely clue in the Quick Cryptic here by Flamand, and I think we can all enjoy that one. It's a beautiful bit of wordplay, one of the kind of finds that you get, and one of the reasons we like to do crosswords. So I hope that's helpful as a kind of introduction to how to break down clues. Always look for the definition at one end or the other, and then try and see what the wordplay is telling you to do. Bear in mind that one or two of the words in the clue are quite likely to be just treated as their letters, not the actual meaning of the word. And that can really help. And thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again on another Cracking the Cryptic. Bye now.